This month's CADASIL Consortium webinar is a bit unusual. Rather than having one speaker give a talk to our group, we're sharing updates from recent meetings with you. 4 CADASIL Consortium delegates attended the International CADASIL meeting from June 4th and to 5th in Leiden, the Netherlands. And then we held our first in-person U.S. CADASIL Consortium meeting in Salt Lake City, Utah on June 23rd. Our amazing students took the 12-hour all-day meeting and selected some video to share with you. The 45-minute recording is a bit difficult to appreciate since the speakers are not focused on teaching us and the camera and the slides are not maximized for a webinar. But we wanted to share some presentations. So here's a brief overview of the recordings chosen for your review. First, just a quick success overview and a thank you to the attendees by myself, Jane Paulsen, which takes about 13 minutes, followed by a recruitment and retention team sharing partnership initiative with Megan Caruso and Jenna Spring that goes about 20 minutes. Director of over 4 million data points updates by Jeremy Buchholz from Atlanta will run you through the tape till about 25 minutes. Stephen Salloway, the site investigator from Brown University, will share a history of the CADASIL in the U.S. and the most recent updates from the international meeting from about 25 to 36 minutes. And we conclude with 9 minutes from the University of Texas Houston Fellow, Dr. Sungmi Lee, presenting the quality control, family relatedness, and ancestry of our genetics data. Data from this meeting is currently being prepared for publication and will be the focus of our future webinars, so look forward to hearing from us again soon. Enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
The scientists and the researchers and the doctors to work in partnership with the families, and I just want to thank everyone for being here and for taking that courage leap to share your stories. I think Brooke said, you know, the worst thing a parent wants to do is give a disease to their children or something like that. I paraphrase, sorry, Brooke, but I thought to myself, but we all do that. We all do that. The difference is you guys are pioneers. Once your gene is discovered, you become one of the autosomal dominant who gets to know ahead of time and speak out and be one of these people at a meeting like this who can help us find the way. And there's no other way we can learn about diseases, but once we find a gene, we can now dive deep into the mechanisms and the reason it happens and hopefully find ways to approach it and treat it. So I want to thank you for your courage and vulnerability. And Michael's right. This whole study was started with a family who came up to me and said, why don't you do for CADASIL what you did for HD? And I went, oh, sorry, we'll get right on that. and this whole crew, I swear, every phone I picked up, whether it was to Michael or Steve Salloway or Europe somewhere, they were fabulous. This community is so amazingly strong. So I just want to thank you for starting our day off right, remembering what we're here for. Okay. And then I'm showing you this stuff. We have these great paper groups. Everyone jumped in and we said, okay, we did get a year behind in this study, and despite it's been one of the most challenging studies I've done, it has nothing to do with the topic or the cohort. It has to do with other external circumstances. Research is tricky these days. So I think everyone here requires a reward for just being there with us and being the first in-person meeting, being the first a large CADASIL cohort in the United States and hanging in there during this trying time. So I want to thank you for all that. Okay, so the main people I want to thank, the families for their courage, the sites. Wow, you guys just stepped up. I didn't have to call people twice. It was amazing. And then our specialty centers, and you met some of them, but you'll hear from some of them later. Our specialty centers are the geneticists. Songmi didn't tell you that she's head of our genetics group, the data coordinating center, the imaging coordinating center, who am I forgetting? And I'm sure I'm going to forget many people. Oh, our quality of life, clinical outcomes, really important. So we have experts in every area. We're really fortunate. So I want to just talk about the reason we're here is to thank you, everyone, to bring us together, because only with this strong partnership can we make a difference for CADASIL. And it started and we're well on our way, but let's really make a difference now. So we've had so much successes despite people thinking you'll never be able to do that. I don't know how many times I was told that. And then I would share with people we met our recruitment goal. You know, we're analyzing our baseline data, which by the way is now like 568, right? And I know, you guys are remarkable. Our goal was 500 with MRI scans. So, you know, we're just continuing to kick some serious booty there and just take it over the top. So I'm really proud of us. So we have 568 patients, 12 sites. We have our specialty centers. We have 22 investigators. So people just stepped up. Even if there was already a site investigator, there'd be another one from a site that says, I want to be involved. I want to be involved. I want to help with that. So it was so great. We have 10 specialty investigators who are just a specialty in biomarkers or imaging or genetics, and they said, wow, this is exciting. I want to be part of finding treatments for this disease. And so that's 32 investigators. We have at least 25 students, and I don't know how many coordinators, but boy, you guys have been running the show, and we can't thank you enough. Our coordinators are over the top. We have given 35 presentations at professional meetings and 30 public-facing meetings. And that's talks, presentations. And that's important because we have to continue to reach out and share what we learn, and that's what today is about. So we're here to say thank you. We're here to celebrate these successes. The original grant was for $30 million, but we have added 3 more grants to it, and now we're at $39 million that the government has dedicated to CADASIL. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but we're going for more because we are out. So that's the motivating factor. So we're going, yay, we are so successful, we gotta keep going. So that's why we need everyone's input. It doesn't matter what role you are in this team. This is a team, and we need everyone's input to make sure we submit the most competitive grant. So anybody in higher places can say, that looks like something we should be supporting. You know, research with rare disease helps all those other diseases because they can't watch people before they get sick. They can't stand up like you guys today and say, I actually know one of the genes that I passed on. All of us passed on all our genes. Most of us don't know them. So we have an extra power there. It's our superpower. Let's use it. Okay. Okay, so everyone knows this, but just to review, it's a 5-year multi-site study. Our ancillary studies, which are those additional studies we added on, we also wrote those through NIH grants and gave us another $9 million. Those run through 2029, but the big study runs out at the end of next year, so we're gonna really focus on that one. A study visit, everyone in this room knows it by heart, and it requires 3 in-person visits. And this is a little flow chart, but I like this kind of thing to show where the data goes, but I'm not sure everybody else likes this kind of thing. Does this have a pointer? It's one of them. Oh, there you go. Okay, so it starts with, well, there's ethical oversight. It's the Western Clinical Group that provides all the ethical, every piece of material we put on our website, every informed consent form, every study plan we make has to be reviewed for its ethical guidelines. And the NIH sponsors us. So that all then comes to Wisconsin in the coordination center, and our data center works tightly with us because the data and the coordination works together. And as Brendan talked about, we do allow genetic counseling and CLIA-certified testing, so it doesn't have to go in your medical record. So all this information is the coordination, and here's where the heart of the study is, the sites. You send all of your imaging data to, look at me shaking, whew. All your imaging data goes to our data center. All of your blood samples goes to the NICRAD, which is the Alzheimer's biorepository. They wanted us so bad, they made us use their repository. So that's really exciting. And then they took our blood and they analyze the genetics and the biomarkers, and then they send it back up to the data center. Then the data center works close with our statistics center. Dr. Newton is here representing our statistics team, which we have 5 statisticians working on this data right now. And the data you're going to see today is hot off the press. So, I mean, it will change from the minute we show it to the next moment, and some of the slides we show will be old. That's how fast we're trying to get through this stuff. And then we're going to work together, and we're inviting everyone within our center here. We've invited everyone. If you need papers, you're willing to look and dive into this data and look at what we're learning, please step forward. We need people to help write these papers and get them out and inform the world what we've found, because these 568 people are already informing the world. Then all of our imaging is an automated processing. All of these outcomes, I won't go through them because you'll hear from imaging later today. But our data coordination and imaging center has been using amazing, is it fair to call it AI, or is that just not? It's all AI. He's working on automating it. So it looks at your scan and it says, okay, I see this much microbleeds. I see this much lacunes. And if it misses one, he goes back and he corrects the computer and says, no, that IA was dumb, so now we're going to make it better AI. And so that's what we're doing for everything in this study, is we're trying to make everything as automated as possible, so we won't have families going to their small town physician who doesn't know anything about CADASIL, because we are going to teach them. So our numbers, I know you can't see this. The main thing is we have 562 when this slide was made. That's how fabulous we are. This is how many with MRI scans, because it's brain disease, so we need your scan. And then our additional studies are, this is visit 2. We already have well over 268 on visit 2. We already have visit 3s coming in, 38. And then our additional studies are cerebral vascular reactivity, blood flow in the brain, and retinal imaging. And so all of those studies are separately funded, and we're seeing participants in all of them, and we need all of them to continue. I am going to have to defer our genetic Notch 3 variants to our geneticist, who's going to present later. But there are 2 slides here. So that's the slide I have, though. That's the old one. That's okay. So just so you know, these are the EGFR domains of the CADASIL gene. There's 34 domains. And we already have encapsulated who we have in this sample. What are our most frequent mutations? What are our least frequent mutations? And the exciting thing is we have a lot of these that no one's ever described before. All of these are variants of unknown significance, which means if you go to the doctor now, they're going to say, I don't know. But we're going to answer that, right? Because now we have data. We can say, yes, we know. So I've got a double stop sign. Twice. Okay, twice? That was twice. Let's go for 3. One more time. Okay, the coolest for this new grant we just submitted, it's the Exposome grant. It looks at genetics, environment, interactions. And this slide shows you that we literally took everyone's zip code. You go, why did you need our zip code? Well, we needed your zip code because we looked up if you live next to a mine, next to a factory, how's your air pollution, how's your, everything. What is your environment like? And we literally can look at your buildings in the new grant if we get it funded and look at whether it has lead paint in it or not. So we're going to look at environment-gene interactions, and this data shows, in the nutshell, it matters. It matters what you do. So that is the first thing we can do right away for people with CADASIL is it matters what you eat, what you exercise, where you live, what pollutants you put in your body, and we're going to learn more about that. So then we can stop, but the final thing I have to share, because I'm not letting Carrie shut me down, is we ran over 500 biomarkers in your sample already. And you'll hear more about this. But we already have significant findings. And you're going to hear more about this because this is going to be a paper on its own. I looked in the literature. The only other paper of proteomics and CADASIL had 8 CADASIL patients, and 7 normal controls. We now have these biomarker data in, 500 people, and we already have significant changes in these 4 biomarkers. And the reason it's so exciting is because this gives us something to give other scientists to say, drill down. Now we can measure this. This is abnormal. And this is just from Jenna. Sure. Now we'll turn it over to our fabulous recruitment retention team. Oh, yeah, I'll get it. Great.
Hi, everybody. Like I said earlier, my name's Megan. Along with working at the Rhode Island site, I also help with the recruitment and retention team. As you can see, we had a little bit of a slow start to enrollment with the first year, lagging a little bit behind due to, honestly, remnants of COVID. We had slow startup for all the sites. And so, but over time, we've been able to exceed 500. It's actually cut off on this graph where we've had over 568 right now that have been enrolled, which is great. And each of the colors break down into the different grant years. And as you can see, I'm sure in the back you can't see the slopes, but we significantly increase our rate of enrollment. How did we do that? It was not easy. But some of the ways that we did or were able to do that was getting all sites onboarded. We also really launched a family enrollment campaign, which I think just did wonders for our study, encouraging family members to bring in their siblings or bring in their cousins or their children. And, for sites that could accommodate more than one family member at a time, it was really, really meaningful to be able to dive into this research study, which is brave on its own, but especially with a family member next to you, being able to go to lunch and talk about your cognitive testing or your MRI, it just makes it a lot more approachable. Another thing that we did was we got IRB approval for electronic medical record searches so that all the sites would search their electronic medical records, seeing if there were any CADASIL patients that weren't contacted about the study so that they would be aware of that. We also, Jen and I served as site liaisons with some of the sites where we were meeting with sites on a regular basis, moving folks from, being interested at the coordinating center to actually getting enrolled, and that was really beneficial. Another, reason for the success, I think, I have to shout out Steven Blittersdorf, our travel coordinator. At the start of the study, all sites were responsible for figuring out their own travel. And so while some sites, had a university travel coordinator that you could use, other sites had participants, front the travel expenses and then have to get reimbursed just based on their institutional policy. So with Steven's introduction to this team, we were able to break down a lot of financial barriers for some sites. And then the last thing that we've been doing is, really engaging with the community. I am so grateful to have community members here. I think it's so, so important for this work to be in partnership, and what we've been doing through webinars and creating resources and engaging with community meetings with Cure CADASIL and our community advisory board, we've really been able to have a solid foothold within the CADASIL community. So, as much as we need the community, or as much as, we're providing research for the community, we need them. And so by, being able to give back to the community, we've really solidified our spot as a pillar of the CADASIL community.
All right, so Megan talked about some of our current and past initiatives. Here are some additional recruitment retention initiatives. So one of those is our diversity recruitment. We want our research to reflect people, all the people that live in North America, all races, ethnicities, backgrounds. So that's one of our current initiatives going on. We also, like Megan mentioned, have the CADASIL Community Advisory Board. We have a few members attending here with us today. It's a great group. We've got people of all different professional backgrounds. We have participants, patients, people from all sorts of different groups. So it's just a great group. We meet quarterly. Any of the coordinators or PIs out here, if you guys have participants or anyone that wants to get more involved, please reach out to Megan or I. We want to continue to grow that group of people. We also have our doctors directory, which is posted on our website. We're also wanting to continue to expand this. There's self-referrals, patient referrals. So we want to just to continue to build our website with more resources, and that's one of them that we've been working really hard on. Megan has been the one that has been the driving force behind that. We also have our family and friends conferences. So this is an opportunity for our participants to invite any family or friends that they would want to join. They get to meet with one of our neurologists and a coordinator, and just an opportunity for them to answer any questions or ask any questions that they have about CADASIL, anything specific about our research study as well. We also have additional participant resources on our website that we'll go over on the next slide, and we've been working with Cure CADASIL and other organizations to just share the resources that they already have established and continuing to create more on our website so that when participants search CADASIL, you know, CADASIL Consortium pops up, Cure CADASIL pops up, so we just want to create more of a one-stop resource for all of them. So.
And speaking of resources, so that's one of the best kind of retention aims we have. You know, let's keep on giving back to our community members, our participants, our families, so that they, you know, aren't just, you know, participating in research and then get a call 18 months later. We really want to make it into a partnership with the community. And so earlier you may have seen on the rotating slides that we have recently disseminated a participant feedback survey, and one of the things that we got back was, you know, sounds like you have all these great resources, where are they? And so while we do send it out to folks who have, you know, agreed to be on our mailing list, we realized that we should probably definitely centralize it on our website. And so this is one of our resources where we're trying to do CADASIL frequently asked questions. We are trying to expand that list. So if you are a neurologist or a clinician and willing to, you know, vet some of these questions that participants or patients have, please let us know. You can raise your hand now. Jenna will note you down, because we really want to make sure those resources are getting to the community. And then we also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our webinars. Our webinars have been an extreme hit with the community. They are all, the audience is the community, so we are trying to continue that on. So thank you so much.
Test. Yes. Data facts, successes, and lessons learned. So we've been doing this 4.5 years, and we've learned a lot. The biggest lesson I would say is that we don't want to do pen and paper assessments ever again. We didn't want to at the beginning of the study, but we had resistance, and so we decided to do things on paper. It's a lot of work to do double data entry and screen for conflicts and fix all the little minor mistakes. It takes forever. So with the exception of a handful of CRFs, you can advance. No? Oh, sorry. Yeah. With the exception of 5 or 6. Okay. We've eliminated double data entry in favor of just directly entering things into our COINS web-based assessments. The other thing we've learned is real-time QA/QC. We're doing that now. We reach out to sites sometimes the next day, depending on when things are uploaded to us. We ask for what's called clarifications, and that's just, you know, try to answer things that either you missed, skipped, or don't make sense. And then in terms of ongoing opportunities, things that we're going to continue to build, we're going to try to provide sites a kind of digest version or one sort of setting where they can just go in and answer all of the outstanding issues at their site in one place, make that efficient for the site and for us. And I think that's good for the other thing about data. So we've got a very large warehouse to mine. We actually have 2.4 million responses. And on average, 4,285 items are asked and answered at each study visit. We analyze all of that. We put all of that information in front of the statisticians and my team as well, and we're already looking at it, using it, and we'll be publishing several papers throughout the rest of this year. The other thing, as Jane started to present, we have 530 of the 568 where we've got genomics, metabolomics, proteomics, and methylation sequencing, and we're actively looking at all of those results on their own and together. So that's good. Let's see. Dr. Salloway. Oh, yay. No, I covered it all. But I wanted to show you my warehouse. So that doesn't look like much, but that is the warehouse that I built for this project. That is literally everything. So you've got the 2 million responses, you've got the data dictionary, which is quite honestly the most important thing. Think of that as our code book. We have the raw genetics, demographics. We actually have the unblinding map. We have the Notch 3 risk, which the genetics core provided us. We've got an audit, and then we have various flavors of gluing this all together. So I dump this warehouse out every week, and we QA, QC it, and then we provide it to the statisticians every month. The next phase is going to be visit twos. There we go.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, I'm Steve Salloway from Brown, and I'm a late add-on to this, but I diagnosed my first patient with CADASIL in the early 1990s, and it was about the time that the disease was first reported from France, and the initial mutations and the initial mutation Notch 3 was identified. At that time, it took us 6 months. We only could test for 2 of the exons you saw in Jane's slide. At that time, it took 6 months to get the result back from France. So we've improved on that quite a bit. But as a result, I started getting involved in CADASIL research, and we worked together with collaborators around the world. And we actually conducted the first placebo-controlled trial, which Michael was part of, for CADASIL a while back. And I noticed that there were consortia in Germany, where they were very organized and collecting all the CADASIL families in Germany at one site, in France, in England. And I said, gee, we got to do this in the United States. Well, it took us a while. I want to thank Jane and Michael and Jeremy and everyone that worked on this grant to finally bring this. This is a celebration today. Let me tell you, to get to this point where we have established this network, it's funded by NIH, and we've recruited such a large cohort, and it's growing, and we have the ancillary studies. And so that's a big, I want to give a round of applause for Jane and the people in Wisconsin making this happen. It's a big deal. Now, I was also fortunate, and Carrie, get your stop sign ready, because we have an insurance policy for parking and traffic tickets. I've been also fortunate to be involved with another genetic disease, autosomal dominant Alzheimer's disease, and the DIAN study, and there are other people in this room that participate in DIAN. It's been amazingly successful and impactful, and it really helps. All the progress you're hearing from Alzheimer's came primarily from that study, studying those families. And they, just like you guys this morning, they moved us so much. So the good news is that a whole trials unit developed up there, and it is possible to do this with an uncommon disease. So research equals hope, And we have our job, our responsibility collectively, and I want to thank all of the families in Cure CADASIL and everybody that's helped from our Community Advisory Board, the coordinators, for working together to make this, get to this milestone. And we're going to need your help going forward. It's really a partnership. Research equals hope, and Jane and Jeremy and Devin and I were fortunate to go to the international, do you have the slide? Do you have the picture? Is that the next? Oh, there you go. There you can see, it was a lovely meeting in Leiden just 2 weeks ago in the Netherlands. And it took place, it was hosted by Saskia Oberstein, and she runs a very dynamic group. There were a lot of researchers from around the world, a lot of young people, a lot of great science, a lot of great camaraderie. And so this is a flyby of the highlights of that meeting. And you'll see there's a lot going on. There's been a lot of progress from when I first got involved in this field, so it's great. One is that there's a mystery, a clue, an Asian mutation, the R544C. It's largely seen in Taiwan. There were a lot of Taiwanese researchers there. It has a high prevalence of about 1%. That's much more common than CADASIL mutations in the United States, but a very low penetrance. It doesn't affect everybody and only affects the minority of people. So that's really interesting, and it gives us an opportunity. It's an important clue. Those patients who have that mutation, who have clinical symptoms, have a higher rate of microbleeds and intracerebral hemorrhage, which seems a little unique to Asia. So again, another clue. There haven't been many clinical trials yet for CADASIL, but Dr. Chabrier from France reported on a very small single-site trial of vitamin E, which was not effective, but I don't think the sample size was large enough. And the company that supported it didn't have the money to do a multi-center study. So another big issue going forward is we have to engage pharma, and I want to really involve our Community Advisory Board on this to get excited about CADASIL and come up with their very best ideas for how to approach it. That's a very important partnership. Dr. Marcus from England talked about the GWAS study. They've studied 3,500 individuals looking for signs of genetic factors that contribute to CADASIL. They don't have a hit yet, but they need a larger cohort, so an opportunity to collaborate there. Dr. Gravenstein from London reported on progress in the INSIGHT study, trying to develop markers of disease progression, and Jane spoke to him about collaborating, so you're going to hear a theme there. Again, our community advisors push us to get the most out of the data, to build the networks and the collaborations, and to get to treatment trials. We need you to advocate and also push us to make sure we're doing our very best. Dr. Hack is a young researcher from Leiden, talked about the Novartis approach, stratifying genetic risk into low, medium, and high, and Jane spoke to him about collaborating because they need more people for that sample. And Jane did a great job presenting our baseline data. This is sort of like the first, this was the debut. And Saskia, the hostess, offered to review our pattern of genetic data and comparing it with theirs and to see which genes may be disease-causing and which ones may not. We had an around-the-world tour from Brazil, Argentina, Czech Republic, Spain, Portugal, and they each described their cohorts and their infrastructure. A really interesting talk from Dr. Liao from Taiwan was on 2 mutations that were homozygous. There were enough people who had 2 copies of a mutation, which is pretty uncommon, but there were 2 of these, and they looked into studying them and what the clinical effects were, and they were associated with earlier onset, increased risk of stroke, and higher white matter disease, and more Notch3 in the vascular walls. So there haven't been many reports about homozygous mutations. I'm sure I'm getting stop signs galore. David Baker gave a great talk on molecular analysis of Notch3 receptor aggregation, so a basic talk. Notch3 variants do not aggregate into the GOMs on their own. They require the wild-type protein. And he identified, this is the most encouraging thing here, selective inhibitors that block that process. So he's trying to move that forward into potential clinical trial. There was a study of plasma profiles of CADASIL versus normal controls, and this group is trying to identify 30 key proteins and quantifying to a larger study. So this relates into the data that you heard about our own samples. A very inspiring talk was Brian Traynor from the NIH, discussed his experience identifying the C9 mutation for FTD-ALS. And they used the UK Biobank, and his group identified a polygenic risk score that predicts earlier onset of ALS by 8.3 years, and he's identified a compound that may be able to treat ALS based on that risk score. So that's, again, that can transfer over to the work that we're doing. Dr. Karlstrom, a basic researcher from Sweden, talked about trying to immunize mice, transgenic mice who develop CADASIL. And unfortunately, in these younger mice, she had some success in older mice with CADASIL. She couldn't get the GOMs, the aggregates I'm seeing you, the aggregates to disappear. So it needs further research, but that's it is a potential treatment strategy. A highlight of the meeting was the Young Investigator poster blitz session. Megan participated in that last year in Paris. And 16 young researchers had 1 minute to present their data, and so they had the stop signs with a tennis racket at that meeting. They did a neuropath study in people with high-risk mutations and people with moderate-risk mutations. They both died of CADASIL, end-stage CADASIL. But people with high-risk mutations had much more GOMs, that material that builds up in the blood vessel wall, than the people with the moderate risk mutations. So even though it's end-stage CADASIL, the pathology was not the same. They looked at amyloid PET, a marker of Alzheimer's pathology, in CADASIL patients, and 6 out of 49 had a buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain. And those patients had worse cognitive impairment. I'm almost done, I promise. There was a lot going on. There are other diseases that cause mutations in the CADASIL gene frame shift mutations that don't cause CADASIL. One causes, and they reported on this for a young researcher from Leiden, one causes a small vessel disease, a loss of function small vessel disease, and another causes a childhood dysmorphic disease, a lateral meningeal syndrome. So there are other variations of clinical syndromes related to changes in CADASIL. I'm going to have to, because of time, I think probably the biggest takeaway for this meeting is spontaneously the host got up on the first day and said, isn't it time that we develop a worldwide network to study CADASIL where we pool all our data and we move forward with building a clinical trial-ready cohort? And hear, hear. Thank you.
Here's if you want to advance your slides, use your microphone, or you could have Megan advance if you just wanted to.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Can I go back to this slide? Or can I go back to this previous?
Yeah, you can. Oh, yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm new here, so it's very nice to meet you in person. My name is Sungmin Lee. Again, I'm a postdoc research fellow working with Dr. Miriam Fernaz at UT Health Houston. As part of CADASIL Consortium, we've been working on genetic data, and I'm pleased to share some of the work we've done so far today. Oh yeah, that was my first slide. Yeah. All right, so I'll try not to make it too complicated. So as we all know, CADASIL is a monogenic cerebral small vessel disease caused by mutations in NOTCH3 genes. This gene produces a protein called NOTCH receptor 3, and as you see this figure, the extracellular domain consists of 34 epidermal growth factor repeat domain, and each domain, I'm not sure if I can use the pointer, the laser. Oh, sorry, thank you. So under the normal condition, there are 6 cysteine amino acid residues. On the other hand, the CADASIL causing mutations alters the number of cysteine within each EGFR, resulting in an odd number of cysteines. And that leads to, that disrupts the normal structure of the protein and leading to the accumulation of granular osmophilic material within small blood vessels, which is the pathological characteristic specific to CADASIL. So in the genetic data, we have 530 people with whole genome sequencing data available, and we identified 347 samples who carry the NOTCH3 cysteine-altering variants. And these people were divided into high, medium, and low risk groups based on the EGFR risk stratification. That's based on the location of mutation within EGFR domains. And across these people, 92 unique NOTCH3 cysteine-altering variants were identified. On the other hand, 183 at-risk family members who do not carry NOTCH3 cysteine-altering variants, we found 47 people with variant of uncertain significance, or called VUS. This VUS was defined by multiple annotations, including clinical significance, biological consequence, and protein impact score. So we identified 52 VUS variants across 47 individuals, which warrant further investigation. Right, so we performed the quality control using genetic data and baseline phenotype data. First, we noticed 6 samples are missing the baseline data. We're still in the process of figuring out why those are excluded, but we assume those are sex mismatched. And oops, my bad. And the figure on the left shows the heterozygosity QC results. This step is to examine whether the sample have the substantial more or less heterozygosity compared with the rest of the cohorts. So deviations from the mean may indicate that they should be excluded in the downstream analysis. We also performed the ancestry inference analysis using genetic data. I apologize, it may be too small to see from the back, but I'll try to explain. So this plot shows the sample assignment based on genetic information, and then the software we used compares each sample's genetic data with the reference populations and place them in this triangular shape, which is defined by major ancestry group, European, African, and East Asian. And this summarized table shows the majority of the samples are classified into European ancestry groups, and we have some other ancestry groups as well. So using those results, we compared inferred genetic ancestry categories with the self-reported race information. And we observed a high agreement between these two. For example, people who self-reported Black or African American were classified as African and African American, and majority of samples who self-reported White were classified as European. However, we have some other samples classified as Latin American 1 and 2, but those were consistent with people who self-reported Hispanic as ethnicity information. So we observed a high concordance between two.
Right, so and then we perform the principal component analysis to identify the data structure in this data. Or we call PCA. PCA summarizes the genome-wide genetic variation of the data into components, and it is commonly used to identify ancestry-informed genetic structure. This figure shows the first few PCs in our results, and as expected, each point represents each participants. So, as expected, the samples cluster according to their genetic ancestry category, demonstrating that our PCs captured this population stratification very well. Therefore, we're going to use these PCs in the downstream analysis to account for population stratification. Lastly, we examined the genetic relatedness among the participants. This figure shows the estimated pairwise kinship coefficient. And the sample clustering helps us to identify different degrees of relatedness. And as you see this table, we identified one identical twin and substantial related participants. So take-home message here is we have to account for this familiar relatedness in downstream analysis to account for familiar relatedness. To conclude, we identified 347 NOTCH cysteine altering variants carriers and 183 at-risk family members with whole genome sequencing data available. And our QC analysis identified 2 samples with excess heterozygosity, which warrants further investigation. And we observed high concordance between genetically inferred ancestry with the self-reported race and ethnicity. Lastly, we observed a substantial familial relatedness, which needs to be accounted for the statistical analysis and interpretation of the results. So our goal is to understand why individuals with the same mutation can experience the different level of severity. So first, we aim to identify genetic modifiers beyond NOTCH3 that may contribute to variability in disease severity. As we have sequencing data, we can evaluate the rare variants contribution to the heterogeneity. And lastly, we aim to integrate genomic biomarker and imaging data to identify molecular pathways underlying the variability.